All right. So this is where we're at. Last day of lecture. And I think Jules was going to do some training with you guys, like hands-on stuff. So more to come on that. Watch your email. So 30 is special operations and 31 is terrorism and natural disasters. So we'll cover that today in the lecture part. 100 and 700, if I haven't received those from you yet, please get those to me. I have a few of them. But there's some handful of you guys out there that haven't finished them yet, so just send them to me when you're done. I'll do some follow-up emails with this stuff as well. Um, were you guys able to create accounts and or hop on that EMSRB or OEMS to create an account so I can add you to my class? If you haven't done that, we can work on that too. So, all right. We're going to start with chapter 30. This one, both these chapters are pretty similar to last week, so we should be done probably around 5:45, 6 o'clock tonight. So anything after that, you can work on your stuff that you need to work on if you haven't already. So chapter 30 is special operations. So this one, hazardous materials, MCIs, triage, extrication, and then aeromedical rescue we're going to talk about. So situations requiring special operations are usually hazmat situations. We don't go into hazmat. We have to stay in the cold zone for that, which I'll talk about. MCIs, which will eventually happen, and then aeromedical evacuations. So these are some special operations situations in any incident where we might encounter these. And we will eventually. Sometimes it might require all three. So hazardous materials. For this one, we are going to come across hazardous materials. We do it every day. DOT regulates not only the hazardous materials that are transported, but also how they're reported, how they're documented and identified. So the system is designed to provide those who work with or near the hazardous material warnings of the dangers. So you drive by them on the highway all the time, the vehicles with placards going by you. The established standards are referred to as hazardous material communication or HAZCOM. They define the requirements for shipping papers, documentation, labeling, and placarding of all vehicles carrying hazardous materials. The U.S. Department of Transportation, or DOT, the placard system, is a diamond-shaped sign called a placard. It's required when hazardous materials are being transported in commerce. DOT classifies the materials into 9 different categories. Numbers on the placard may show the division of the class of hazardous material. These placards have a 4-digit number, like the 1866 that you see. You can use those as a reference placard ID number in the DOT Emergency Response Guidebook, it's called, or the ERG. So we're going to find information on the material, the safety measures in the event of a spill or release of that chemical. We can obtain additional information from invoices, shipping papers, bills of lading. Often these documents are stored in the wheelhouse of a water-going vessel, in the truck cab, or in the engineer compartment of a train. So remember that hazardous materials may not have a placard if it doesn't meet the weight or class requirements for displaying one. So always err on the side of caution when we're approaching scenes, because it depends on the chemical, but not all of them need to have a placard system depending on the weight of them. So people could still be hauling this just in small quantities and we might not know about it. The National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, has developed a system to alert emergency responders to the characteristics of hazardous materials stored in stationary tanks and facilities. This is known as the NFPA 704. It uses a combination of colors and numbers to indicate the basic hazards of specific material present. So the diamond shape, it's got 4 quadrants. We have our red, yellow, white, and blue. So the left quadrant, or the blue one, this contains a numerical rating of the substance's health hazards on a scale of 0 to 4. So 4 being the worst, 0 obviously being the best on health. Top quadrant, or the red one, contains the substance's flammability rating on a scale of 0 to 4, how flammable it is. The right quadrant, or this yellow one, contains the substance reactivity or its susceptibility to release energy. Again, like all these are 0 to 4. And then this bottom white one will have symbols, special hazards that may be using 3 possible codes. It might have an OXY, which means it's an oxidizer. It might have a W, which reacts with water. This one does not react with water. Or a tri-blade propeller symbol means it's radioactive. Materials, safety data sheets. This is actually just safety data sheets now. They've taken the material part out of there, so it's just SDS sheets. Employers are required to maintain a current SDS from the manufacturer for every hazardous chemical that's in the workplace. So these SDS sheets, you should be able to retrieve them from an area around the chemicals. It's usually stored in like a yellow binder with red writing. And it has all the information you need for that specific chemical or hazardous material. Everything has an SDS sheet. Whiteout, highlighters, pens, bleach, every kind of chemical that you could possibly think of, even in an office setting, has a safety data sheet that goes along with it. So attempting to retrieve that if it's safe to do so, if you're able to retrieve it, we can look at that for best practices for health, containment, how far we need to stay away, and first aid measures in that for that specific chemical if we know what the chemical is. Incident safety wise, so the incident's divided up into 3 zones. We have the hot, warm, and cold zone. We're going to be located in the cold zone. That's where normal triage is. So the hot zone, this is an area directly around the incident where the hazardous materials have breached their container. We're not going into that area. Somebody suited up in an SCBA and hazmat suit is going to be doing that, unless you're trained to do so. Warm zone, this is an area surrounding the hot zone. Hazmat technicians dressed in levels A and B suits prepare to enter into the hot zone from this warm zone. Those suits are designed to resist chemicals and incorporate self-containing breathing apparatus like your SCBA, and then decontamination occurs from this zone into the cold zone. The cold zone is an area surrounding the warm zone. No contaminants are present and no special equipment is needed. And so decontaminated patients are brought to the cold zone, and that's where we triage and work on our transport decisions for that. So cold zone is our safe zone on the outside of that perimeter. MCIs or multiple casualty incidences. So a multiple casualty incident is an event that overwhelms the resources of the responders at the scene. So an MCI might mean a large number of patients, but it also might mean a small number. Its classification is going to depend on the immediate resources that are or are not available. So if we have up here, like Cherry had the school bus accident, that was an MCI, right? It taxed their resources. Up here in Ely, if we have 1 crew on the ambulance, and we get a 15-passenger van with 10 people or even 5 people in another vehicle, that's a mass casualty for us because it's gonna tax or overwhelm the resources that we have on hand currently. So MCI, bring to mind terrorist attacks, severe storms, large-scale disasters. By definition, an MCI is an incident that overwhelms the resources of the responders on scene. Simple motor vehicle crash involving a school bus full of children can quickly be that. So effective management of an MCI is achieved by using our ICS, the Incident Command System model. So working with that again. No matter what your role is on an MCI, we want to work as a team to deliver the most care to the largest number of patients. The goal to managing an MCI is quickly and effectively triaging, providing emergency care, and transporting all patients to the most appropriate medical facilities as we can. So with triage, there's a few different types of triage out there. I'm going to talk about start triage and jumpstart triage. So this is what a sorting tag looks like, or a triage tag. So triage is just sorting of patients by severity of their injuries, so that the most severely injured patients receive treatment first. So the standard system used nationally is the simple triage and rapid treatment or START triage system. So the START actually stands for Simple Triage and Rapid Treatment. START triage assigns a triage category based on assessment of breathing, perfusion, and mental status, and that is it. If they're not breathing, we move on. If they're breathing, we look at perfusion. If they are breathing and they have a pulse, we look at their mental status. So when we get down through this, we'll talk about the colors here. So the Department of Homeland Security chose the START triage system to be the national model. There are other systems out there. We don't use this system for Ely ambulance, but it's a similar system that we use. So what this is the national model and incorporated into the NIMS system, or National Incident Management System. So we're going to utilize the START and Jumpstart triage systems to do the most good for the most patients. So the START triage system can be accomplished with no equipment, minimal training, get people out and start tagging people. So the START triage system is designed for use of an adult patient, and the Jumpstart triage system is for our pediatric patient, which I'll talk about next. Patients are tagged by the triage officer on scene. We're going to begin with sorting the walking wounded. This is the green. If they can get up and walk, they can head to the green area. We want to make sure that we're also setting up a staging. So there's a green area, a red area, a yellow area, and a black area. So we're going to begin the sorting with the walking wounded. Secondary triage. Ask all patients who can walk to come to a designated area. Be sure that the first responders are there to provide, or EMTs are there to provide care, and begin secondary triage. So we would want to set up an area as green. We would want to have people in that area to then start treating people. Same with all these areas. We need to set up 4 different areas with people helping people in those areas. So the START triage system differs from the normal primary assessment. So we're going to assess breathing and then move to perfusion and then mental status. So if they are walking wounded, they can get up and walk for themselves. We're going to tag them green. If they have an injury that is not serious or not life-threatening, but they can't get up and move on their own, they're going to be tagged yellow. And then a red. These are the ones that are going to be most critical. Say broken hip, broken femurs, unresponsive but has a pulse and is breathing on their own. So that those are going to be tagged red. So red is going to be getting out first. Anybody that we walk up to that's not breathing on their own, there's no pulse, they're unresponsive, we're tagging them black. We will go back and double check all those people, but we want to get through all the people before we start doing anything else. So we can get people the appropriate resources as soon as we can. It's not the most fun job, but we got to tag them the color and send them to that direction so people can start being shipped out of there. The Jumpstart part of this is a triage designed for pediatric patients 1 to 8 and differs a little bit from the adult patient. Airway problems are the primary cause of cardiac arrest in pediatric patients. So the Jumpstart system allows the rescuer to provide rescue breaths to the child to jumpstart their breathing. So with this, if the patient is not breathing after airway opening, we're going to check a peripheral pulse. If there's no pulse, we're going to tag the patient deceased or non-salvageable, which is black. If there is a peripheral pulse, we're going to give 5 ventilations. If apnea persists, we're going to tag them as black and move on. If breathing resumes after the jump start, after those 5 breaths, we're going to tag them as red and get them out of there as soon as we can. That's the only difference. We're not going to do that for adults, but we're going to do that for pediatric. All right, extrication. So safety is always the most important priority for us. Always use proper PPE when we're in these situations. Extrication is the process of disentangling a patient from wreckage or debris so that care and transport can be rendered. Extrication from a vehicle involves stabilizing the vehicle and gaining access to the patient inside. Access may be gained simply by unlocking the door or technically by using a hydraulic tool to remove the roof like the jaws of life. If you have to break a window to gain access, we can use a center punch and break the window on the opposite side of the patient, and we can crawl in. We want to make sure before we go into these vehicles that it's stable. We're never going to go into a vehicle that is unstable, either like on the side of a hill or like maybe it's leaning. We're not going to crawl into that. We want to make sure it's stable first. So while extrication is taking place, we want to try to put all of our PPE on, helmet, gloves, NFPA-approved coveralls, or firefighter coat, pants, or bunker gear, it's called, steel-toed boots. Are we going to have all that equipment? If we're on the fire side of it, we are. You can put that on. If not, try to be as safe as you can when you're going in there. I use like wool blankets to put over the window. You can crawl in there. First, we got to determine if the patient is truly pinned or just entrapped. Pinned means that a part of the patient's body is entangled in the wreckage. They cannot get out. We can't just pull them out. We have to remove the wreckage before we can remove the patient. Entrapment means that the patient is free inside of the vehicle, but due to the damage of the vehicle, the patient cannot be accessed or safely removed from the wreckage. They're free inside, but we can't get inside to get to them. The door's stuck shut, etc. So we want to stabilize unstable vehicles prior to extricating using cribbing. That's the stuff that you see behind the wheel right here, some kind of blocking. It's often made of wood blocks or treated lumber, cut in various shapes and sizes. We're going to place that under the vehicle between the frame and the ground to provide stability. There's other options to do this as well. So we want to make sure the vehicle is stabilized before we can start the extrication process, before we're climbing in. For gaining access, sometimes assessing a patient isn't easy as opening the door of the vehicle. Try all the doors of the vehicle before resorting to tools. This is called try before you pry. Yeah, that's cool. Let's get out the jaws of life and start cracking stuff open. But if you can just open the door and go in, that's probably the best method. So the try before you pry should be practiced in every call when access is initially thought to be prevented by damage to a vehicle. Try all the doors. If you find a patient who is unresponsive or unable to communicate effectively with you and the car doors are locked, we can use a center punch, which is a spring-loaded punch used to break glass out of a car window. Once the window is broken, we want to clear away any of that debris so we don't cut ourselves, unlock the door, and access the patient. Occasionally, damage to the vehicle will be really extensive and maybe too extensive for to allow us to open that door. In those cases, there's Halligan tools, pry bars, stuff that the fire department is going to use to open those doors. So we need to get fire en route if we need extrication at all. There's hydraulic tools that are designed to easily cut most metals found in today's vehicles and give the rescuer the advantage of both speed and power when it comes to extricating people, like the jaws of life would be a hydraulic tool. Patient extrication should only be performed by people that are qualified to use those things. So if the fire department gets on scene and you see the jaws of life sitting there and you grab them and start cutting stuff open, don't do that unless you are trained to do that. So it should be done by qualified extrication personnel because serious injury can result from operating that equipment. So try to open the door first. Air medical. So for air medical, the use of helicopters for the transport of critical patients from a scene owes its origins to the Korean War. Soldiers were flown to MASH units to receive surgical care for their wounds. The use of aeromedical transport greatly decreased the casualty rate as compared to World War II. So this led to the development of helicopter transport for civilian use. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is based on military. So this is improving the outcome of trauma patients right now for our modern times. It can be dangerous to choose this mode of transportation. The benefits to the patient must outweigh the risks. A patient who may require immediate life-saving surgery intervention could be considered a candidate for this. There's criteria. We use what's called NERTAC, the Northeast Regional Trauma criteria for this. As an appropriate landing zone, we would have a nice flat area, free of utility lines, at least 100 by 100 feet in size. The slope of the LZ, or the landing zone, should not be greater than 8 degrees. We're never going to approach the aircraft from the rear around the tail rotor. We're never really going to approach the aircraft with it running at all unless we're doing a hot load, which you eventually will be trained on if you're with an agency, because sometimes that happens. Using a helicopter to transport a patient to a trauma center does not have risks to the patient and the flight crew, or does have risks. So we're going to weigh those risks versus the benefits for the patient. Patients who should be considered for air medical transport are head trauma, spinal trauma, chest trauma, abdominal trauma, heart attacks like STEMIs, and stroke patients. So things that we use for like trauma are like a motorcycle hit a large animal and they were separated from the motorcycle. There's different criteria we can use for when we should call the helicopter. But if you think it's something really bad or something that your local resource can't handle and it's a lot of trauma, or heart attack or stroke, something like that. We want to, or head bleed. We want to get them to the um, trauma center as soon as we can. So we're calling air medical pretty much when we're going en route to that call, just so they can get up here, depending on flight time. So landing zone again, flat, 100 by 100, slope not greater than 8 degrees, 3 utility lines. We can radio the exact location and landing zone description. We want to tell them what the terrain's like, any landmarks, major hazards that you see around. We use what's called STAC, which is a channel that we can talk to the helicopter crew on. So dispatch will assign us an STAC channel, and we can directly have a conversation with the helicopter that's en route to our location. So telling them the terrain, example, your landing zone is a large field with several large oak trees to the south of the field. Landmarks, there's a large water tower to the west of the LZ. The LZ is marked with fire apparatus on either side of it. So kind of giving a heads up. Major hazards, there are utility lines marked with the tanker at the top of the LZ. 3 police cars with blue lights mark the LZ, so they know kind of what they're looking for. Utility lines are really hard to see from the air, so picking a spot that doesn't have utility lines is good. Approaching the aircraft. Once the aircraft has landed, we're going to approach the aircraft from the front of it, direct view of the pilot to assist with loading gear or the patient. We're never going to approach the aircraft from the rear because the tail rotor is located there and that can eat you up. We don't want that. All right, so the U.S. DOT defines a hazardous material as any substance or material in a form that poses an unreasonable risk to health. The National Fire Protection NFPA 704 system is used to mark buildings for hazards with a multicolored diamond sign. That's our placard. The term triage means just to sort. We're sorting through, and we use the start and jump start triage. So looking at airway, breathing, and mental status. So the start triage system begins with an assessment of breathing. So we go breathing, pulse, level of consciousness, essentially. Okay, so I'm going to stop share. You guys know what an ERG is? The Emergency Response Guidebook. Have you ever seen those? It's an orange book. I'm going to bring it up on here. I'm going to share my screen with you. So it looks like this. It's an Emergency Response Guidebook. I'm going to go to 2008. These update every 4 years. So the newest one should be 2024, I believe. There's an app out there. So it looks like this. If that looks familiar to you guys. So this is gonna have all the information that you need for how far downwind, if it's a hazardous material that's been leaking, how far upwind you should stay, general terms of first aid measures, stuff like that in each of these columns. So this one, I like to go to what's called Hazmat Solutions. And this is a company that has a little game that you can play with them. But it goes over the ERG in general, what it's about. So if you guys wanted to pop on there, it kind of thumbs through. It's a YouTube link. So if you look at that, it kind of goes through how you would use this book essentially. And I don't know, I'm going to play this and just see if you guys can hear it. That's 22 minutes long. So I'm going to do this. I'll send you guys this link when we're done with class. I don't think I have already. But I'll send you this link when we're done with class, and then you can watch that on your own as part of this. Because I know some people are driving, some people are doing things. So I'll send you that link as a wrap-up email for this. You can watch that. That's what an ERG is. So these should be in every ambulance, every fire truck, every cop car has one. So if you see if you're on the highway and you see a tanker truck that is spilled or tipped over and you see a placard, that's how you're going to get the information that you need, is by that placard number or the shape of that vehicle. There's ways to identify the material that's in that vehicle with this book that we carry or should be carrying with us in our vehicles. Questions on that chapter? Okay, so I'll email that. That'll be a good 22-minute video for you when we're done. All right. Let me share my screen again and we'll go over 31, which is our last chapter to go over. We'll have a little discussion on other things. All right, so this is terrorism and natural disasters, which probably not going to happen a whole lot in our area as terrorism, but you never know. So topics for this one, your personal safety, patient care priorities, scene size up, and initial actions, or the no approach method it's called. Because we're not just going to jump in sometimes, right? We're going to sit back and wait and see what's happening, take in that bigger picture. So although very different in nature and cause, terrorist incidences and natural disasters have much in common for us as first responders. Both types of incidences can create panic, it creates confusion, and it can affect the health and safety of lots and lots of patients in a relatively short period of time. So these incidences can create hundreds of trauma victims at once due to mechanism of injury, ranging from explosive devices in terrorist events to flying debris from hurricanes or tornadoes. Additionally, many patients may also suffer from medical conditions from extreme heat wave or release of toxic chemicals. Just kind of depends on what it is. So how do we keep ourselves safe? So personal safety, right? We always want to keep ourselves safe. So the mindset there to start with. So we're going to adopt the mindset of safety first when responding to these types of events. We want to stop and ask ourselves, what here can hurt me? PPE, putting on our protective equipment. Think of how you should protect yourself by donning appropriate PPE for that situation. Position yourself to respond as quickly and as safely as possible. Thinking about time, distance, and shielding. So time, so evaluate the safety and stability of that scene. An injured or killed responder is not going to resolve the incident itself. You're just going to create more panic. Distance, incidences of this magnitude can quickly overrun a responder. We want to maintain a safe distance to carefully evaluate the whole picture of what's going on, like the whole incident, what's going on, so we can get resources coming to us that we need to get coming to us. And then shielding is using a protective barrier between you and the incident. In a natural disaster or terrorist attack, we got to have some kind of planned protection with that. So terrorism incidences may be non-selective and injure or kill many people, including first responders. So terrorist incidences have also been known to have secondary incidences aimed at injuring or killing responders. This type of event aims to disrupt the emergency response system in place. So these are secondary attacks that they're called for us. They're aimed at us. So in the case of natural disasters, additional events such as earthquakes, aftershocks, building collapse, multiple tornadoes happening, they're not specifically aimed at emergency responders. It's not like the earth is going to say, I'm going to send a tornado and take these first responders out. But in terrorist incidences, that is potentially the case as a secondary attack on us. But the events can also inflict heavy damage to responders who are on scene if there's multiple tornadoes coming through, or a hurricane, aftershock after earthquakes, that kind of thing. So our patient care priorities in these situations during a terrorist event is focused on providing care for a large number of patients with limited resources. Patient care priorities include informing the patient of care, providing reassurance, protecting the patient from further harm. A primary goal at a major incident is providing for the greater good, so using that triage system. Although this concept may negatively impact specific patients, it should provide the most appropriate care for the greatest number of patients, trying to help as many as we can. So we're going to treat all patients to the best of our ability, including patients responsible for creating that terrorist incident. We're going to inform the patients of our actions, inform the patient of the care you're administering to them, ensuring that the patient has given informed consent, In terrorist events or natural disasters, the patient may be extremely stressed and frightened. Calm the patient, give them clear directions and information. We want to reassure the patient, explain the activities around, like extrication. Tell them what we're doing. They might just be really confused. There's a lot going on at that moment. We want to protect them from further harm. So do your best to protect patients from further harm by using common sense. For example, if a patient's near a fire, remove them from that area, right? Greater good, you may be concerned about the delay in care that may result when responders stay clear of the incident or scene until it's determined safe for us to go in. It's a lot to sit back and have to wait before we go help, but you need to make that decision provides for the greater good as well. So while we may be tempted to rush in and provide that care to a few people, we don't want to become injured or killed ourselves on that scene if it's not safe to do that. An injury to a responder can affect everyone at the scene. It distracts us from providing care of the patient and reduces the available pool of first responders coming in. So, treatment of all victims, we may have to provide care for the individual responsible for that event. Be professional. We have to kind of rise above our personal feelings and do the job that we've been trained to do. So, scene size up. Estimate the number of patients to understand the scope of the incident as it relates to patient care needs. What resources do we need heading in our direction? Remember to initiate the MCI protocol anytime the number of patients exceeds the ability of the available responders. It is now a mass casualty incident. Even though you might not want to think it is, start calling it that. Make a determination about additional resources needed on the scene, additional ambulances, hazmat teams, power companies, extrication, fire, police. Do we have to start getting National Guard your way? There's things that we can do. So start telling dispatch what you need. We can always turn people away if we don't need them. The initial actions or the no approach method. This one, using this method during the incident or the initial response to a terrorist or other disaster incident. As a first responder, sometimes we're not equipped to determine the overall safety of the scene and should stay away from the scene until that determination has been made by qualified individuals. We're going to prevent those who are not qualified from entering the scene. So if you have a lot of public out in that area, we want to protect them from the incident. We want to allow space for the emergency responders to work. On a large-scale incident, law enforcement or the military may handle a perimeter control. So we can at least start clearing people out of that area. So stopping short of the scene is going to protect us from exposure to potential hazards and will allow a proper size up before becoming committed to patient care. The distance we should establish between ourselves and the scene is going to vary by the type of incident, how big it is. So in addition to stopping short, it may be a priority to create a perimeter and prevent other people from entering that scene. We can use our situational awareness to identify potential secondary threats. And in these large-scale incidences, communicate between a lot of agencies is going to be probably standard. So it's going to involve really good communication skills. These secondary events, while we're at a scene, be aware of your surroundings. Look for suspicious objects, vehicles, odd-colored smoke, unauthorized personnel all the time. Listen for noise of hissing, cracking, collapsing, that type of stuff. It's going to lead you to secondary type of events that are going on. Want to communicate with other people. There's going to be EMS, fire, law enforcement, might be calling FEMA in, might be calling in the National Guard, etc. So setting up the incident command system is going to be obviously key with this one. So, all right. So PPE, again, that's just personal protective equipment. Maybe may vary by the conditions, but should include at least gloves. If you have a helmet, put it on. If you have steel toe boots, put them on. Respiratory precautions. If you have an SCBA, have that on. Bunker gear, whatever you carry, put it on that you need. Time, distance, and shielding. These are concepts that the first responder must use to respond quickly and safely while avoiding becoming a part of that incident. Protect from harm. So first responders' responsibility to protect patients from further harm in certain situations by removing a patient from a burning building, etc. Greater good. This is the need to assess the scene, request adequate resources, and enter the scene when it's reasonably safe to do so to help as many people as we can. And then the 360-degree assessment is just careful and deliberate walk around the scene, scanning for dangers or all hazards of what's going on for responders. So Sometimes that scene might be too big to walk around. Might need a helicopter to fly around it, right? If it's a mass casualty thing going on. But stopping, taking in that bigger picture, getting the resources coming that you need to get coming to you. So when confronted with a multiple casualty situation, utilizing resources to treat the most patients and protect as many people as possible from injury is known as the greater good. We're going to start using our start triage and our jump start triage with these incidences. In every multiple casualty incident, the overall responsibility of the event is given to the incident commander. So you guys have done your IS 100 and 700. You have an IC, and under the IC of logistics, operations, finance, etc. So we're using this system to be organized, and the incident commander is the one that has the overall responsibility of that. You have just responded to a multiple vehicle collision and you are performing your 360-degree assessment. What are we looking for? We are looking for everything, right? Do we need extrication? Do we need the power company out there? Is there a hazmat situation going on with anything leaking? So scene hazards, number of patient, equipment needs, ambulance needs, medical needs, all of that stuff is being looked at when we're doing our 360. All right. Questions so far? That's every chapter. That's exciting, right? You guys did it. Every chapter lecture anyway. How are we doing on so I will email out that ERG hazmat solutions so you can watch that. You just gotta scroll down is all you gotta do when you get on there under ERG. How are we doing on OEMS? The Office of EMS. Did you guys sign up and create an account?
No, I need to though.
Okay. So I can look you guys up. If you have, you'll pop up under my system. So in order for me to add you to my class and give you your license when we're all done with everything, which is pretty shortly here, um, I need you guys to create an account on there. If you already have an account, I'll try to find you and then um, we can go from there. But just click on that link that I put on the last email for OEMS and create an account on there. It's going to have you go through a demographic thing, and then you're going to have to, I think, apply to be EMR under applications. If you click on that, um, if you guys are having trouble, I can do a face chat with you or talk it out over the phone as well. So if you're having trouble with that, let me know. Otherwise, that's your homework for tonight is to watch the hazmat solutions that I send out and work on your IS 100 and 700s. I need those because I can't sign you off unless I have a physical copy of those. That stuff I have to keep for 7 years, and then watch the ERG video. Questions?
I got none.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.